Hello, my name is Reverend Holston, and again, welcome to Just Nation, a show based on faith, race, and justice issues here in the city of Philadelphia and beyond. And I'm so excited to be here with you as a host today. Now I'm missing my missing my partner here. Normally my daughter here, Nia Holston, who is a lawyer with the Abolitionist Law Center, is normally co-host with me today. She's not feeling too well, so I got to do this by myself, but thanks, darling. We love you. We'll see you at the next show that we do together. But I'm here today with a very powerful panel here to really discuss a very, very important issue in terms of voting rights and democracy. So the subject today is Martin Luther King, voting, and the special prosecutor law. The special prosecutor law was passed recently in the state of Pennsylvania, and we're going to talk about a little bit about the details around that. But and to speak specifically about it, it's a law that says within 500 feet of every SEPTA stop that the Attorney General should appoint a special prosecutor over the district attorney here in Philadelphia that will prosecute all the cases within that 500 yard radius, which is end up being about 85% of the city of Philadelphia. And so it effectively cancels the votes of people who voted for the district attorney of the city of Philadelphia. Now, just for clarity, for complete openness, I want to be clear that I am a senior advisor in the district attorney's office, but I'm here talking about this issue of justice as a citizen of the city, and I'm glad to be here with these very important citizens who represent major organizations to talk about this issue as well. And so I'm going to start with, from my right, will you introduce yourself?
Yes. Good evening. I'm Catherine Hicks. I'm the publisher of the Philadelphia Sunday Sun, but also the president of the Philadelphia branch in AACP.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And to my immediate right?
Senator Sharif Street.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Senator, for being with us today. To give us one of your areas of work in Harrisburg.
So look, I chair the Banking and Insurance Committee. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. I also am the Democratic Caucus representative on the Sentencing Commission that deals with a lot of the kinds of issues around sentencing.
And also the head of the Democratic Party for Pennsylvania.
And I'm chair of the Democratic Party of Pennsylvania.
Thank you so much. And directly to my left, would you introduce yourself?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Melissa Robbins. I serve as the Vice President of Advocacy and Public Policy for the Urban League of Philadelphia, and I'm very happy to be here with you all.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. So I kind of gave a general definition of what this special prosecutor law is. So I want to hear from your vantage point about what you believe or think about this law and how it's affecting Black voting rights and voting rights for all Philadelphians. I'm going to start here with the senator.
Well, look, it came out of the Senate. One of my colleagues who represents district in Johnstown, way across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, about 300 miles from Philadelphia, introduced it. And some of my concerns with it is that, one, it purported to be a transportation bill. It really has nothing to do with transportation at all. And the idea, I guess, was supposed to be safety on SEPTA, but the scope goes well beyond where people who are riding or going on and off SEPTA. And moreover, it doesn't cover, so in the city, it goes well beyond it, and beyond the city, because SEPTA is in all 5 of the regional counties in Pennsylvania, it doesn't allow special prosecutor to have any jurisdiction there. So it's not really about SEPTA. That was just a Trojan horse to get it into the city and interfere with that. And so the other thing is, it came through transportation process, wasn't vetted by any of the people who would normally look at it in judiciary and go through that process. There were no judiciary hearings, and it wasn't looked at from a criminal justice lens. The other thing is that because it limited this appointment of a special prosecutor to the city of Philadelphia, and it sort of substitutes the judgment of an appointed official for the elected official here, it has a disparate impact on people living in the only black and brown majority minority county in the Commonwealth. And so when things have a disparate impact based on race, they're subject to strict scrutiny. And I think for that reason it's unconstitutional, because I don't think it can pass that standard.
So yeah, thank you for all of that information. But let's try to make it a little plainer for our audience. You're telling me that the elected official, the District Attorney of Philadelphia, which was elected by 155,000 votes in 2021, similar numbers in 2017, and we elected him to be the prosecutor of cases across the city of Philadelphia, that this elected official has had his power stripped from him?
Well, the bill would do that. What I can say is, fortunately, there has not been an appointment of a special prosecutor, but this law, in fact, Act 40, would do that. And I want to give this is an important point, because people say, well, he could still prosecute cases, but the charging discretion is one of the most important issues, and it was a seminal issue in the election. And the decision not to charge is as much a prosecutorial decision as the decision to charge. And the concern when he was running was there was over prosecution. And so now to say, well, he can charge if he wants, but if he doesn't, other people can charge in his stead, is a problem. And part of the issue was the referendum on the ballot. People were talking about, and I say referendum, the issue in the district attorney's election was people wanted. One of the big issues was people wanted a fair caliber of justice. They thought we were over-prosecuted. They wanted justice that was going to charge fairly. In the past, you'd had district attorneys pile on charges. So a person who maybe should get prosecuted but didn't need to get 17 charges when they really committed one act, this district attorney is charging in that way. And so I think the removing that discretion and giving it to someone else really does undermine what the will of the people was. And so fortunately, we're in court. Our caucus has filed an amicus. I've participated in an amicus brief calling it unconstitutional. And so we're hopeful that the courts will strike this down, but it shouldn't have been passed.
Catherine, I want to hear your thoughts.
And, I agree with everything, that the senator has said. But I think the biggest concern, again, is taking away the votes of those who made a decision as to who the DA should be. When you're talking about voting rights and you're talking about now having people go out, you ask them to vote, you ask them to make a choice, and then to see that choice can be stripped is just unconstitutional. So again, the Philadelphia branch NAACP, we have also done a amicus brief, and we're hoping to make sure that this gets stripped and that it doesn't happen, because we chose a DA. He should be able to have the power to prosecute, and that's the entire Philadelphia area, not just one portion.
Absolutely, absolutely. Melissa, you work with the Urban League of Philadelphia.
Yes.
Tell us what the Urban League feels about this.
As a civil rights organization, of course, we want to defend democracy. That's very important, to reserve and protect one's right to vote. So we see through the same lens that you all, we see that it's an attack. We know it's very much political. As the senator said, this came through the Transportation Committee, not the Judiciary Committee, traditionally, when we're talking about crimes. And we also recognize that this is an attack on Black people in the city of Philadelphia. This is a direct attack on a district attorney who swore to be just and to be fair. And that's what he's done. He's created diversionary programs for our youth that we've never really seen before in the city of Philadelphia. He has exonerated a lot of people who were unjustly put away. So this is an attack on Black people, and this is very political. And the Urban League, we stand with the coalition to defend democracy. We're watching democracy literally being stripped away, not just in the Commonwealth, but we're seeing it happen across the nation. So if they can usurp the power of our district attorney, who's next? Our mayor?
She mentioned the mayor, and I will tell you this: there's a long history of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania stepping in and stripping away powers from Philadelphia leaders when You don't like them. When my dad was mayor, the parking authority was stripped away from Philadelphia to school because they wanted to just change who had control. And there were a lot, and that was about jobs and money, and the money that should have been flowing to the school district. And so I do think we can't embrace and lean into a precedent where we're taking away. But this is different.
Yes, it is.
And I'll tell you why this is different.
But
that was
because
only about money.
If we can do that, absolutely.
And this is about our rights, people's basic rights.
Absolutely.
District attorney can take away people's right to liberty to walk around the streets.
Absolutely.
And that's so different than something that's an agency that's basically about money.
Yes, and I mean, there's a long list of powers that have been taken away from the city. Our bus transit system used to be ours. Now it's the Southeastern Pennsylvania transit system. And Republicans control the transit system for the most part over the last 25 years.
And the parking authority as well.
Parking authority. We used to have a Philadelphia port that was controlled by Philadelphia. Now it's the Delaware River Port Authority. And so now that's now become not just a regional, it become a couple of states involved in the control of that. So there are many, and when you mentioned a little bit about the control of the school district that we had to fight to get back. I was a part of many of those fights. But yet this is really different because this is striking directly at the power, what people voted an individual to do.
And every other county has, and people who live in every other county have the ability to have a district attorney be the sole person who can exercise local prosecutorial discretion in those cases. Now, there are a set of cases that the feds and the state can take, but this is saying that the province of regular local enforcement rules are now shifted away from the district attorney. And that's unique to Philadelphia, and that is unconstitutional.
And then you're concerned also about, again, who rides public transportation. I mean, this is a majority of the community is the African American community, uses a lot of public transportation, SEPTA, so that impacts our lives as well when you talk about a decision for a prosecutor to take over what the DA is charged to do.
Yeah, one of the points the senator made really reflects on that is the idea that this DA came in and was charged by the people not to overcharge people.
Yes.
It had been a common practice to put 10 charges on an individual, thinking that at some point they'll plead down to one charge and have an easy conviction.
Well, you know, I think it was a little more than that. I think it also, in many cases, resulted in people actually receiving multiple charges, more than they should have. And as a consequence, what would happen, we had more people spending more time in jail and more time in state correctional facilities. Lesser charges mean you're more likely to stay in the county, greater charges in the state. And there are a number of counties whose economic system revolves around the maintenance of these prisons. So much so, this is not mere speculation, that when I first got to the Senate, there was testimony when Governor Wolf was shutting down prisons, in part because there were less people being prosecuted, and there were a lot of criminal justice reform measures, and there were people that were very upset, who wanted prisons to stay open. And one testifier went so far as to say if Governor Wolf cared about people, he would find a way to fill those jails.
In other words, what he's saying is if Governor Wolf cared, he would make sure that my dad and I and my cousins and my brothers had employment so that we can maintain our way of life off the backs of, this is continued enslavement. This is continued.
Now, to Governor Wolf's credit, he did not listen to that, and we did shut down prisons. But there is a concern that as we continue to make our criminal justice system more fair, that other people will lose jobs, whose jobs are based on a prison, prisons being there. And look, I think one thing, though we should be investing in figuring out ways to employ those people, they should do something other than standing in a prison and watching our loved ones rot in jail. It doesn't make any sense, and it's really not even a good quality of life for the people working there. But the reality is that those people are fighting to preserve a quality of life that revolves around the presence of lots of people in prison. And so when you look at this, it is not merely people wanting to change prosecutorial discretion because they want to take it away from us, which they do. But I think in a deeper sense, this is part of a larger context where there are folks who wish to have a lot of people warehoused in prison.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's a business.
Yes, there is the prison industrial complex.
Absolutely.
That is a part of this country and certainly a part of this state. But tell us about Johnstown and that particular senator and how many prisons he has in his area.
There are a number of prisons in his area, I believe 3 in the near vicinity. And there is a lot of concern for people near prisons about maintaining those populations and maintaining those jobs. And like I said, I think we should maintain jobs, but we should not, but having lots of people in prison is not the way to do it. And look, we got to do better. The other thing is that you're talking about an area where that it itself has a bunch of problems. Some of the highest overdose rates in the country, in the Commonwealth, and also in the country, are in and around Cambria County, where the maker of the bill is from. And so I would suggest there are other things around public safety, and some of it can also be a distraction from the issues, not doing issues about dealing with things at home. But certainly, and I'll go more pernicious, this got through the legislative process because they absolutely refused to move a whole host of things, hold the whole budget process up if they didn't get this done. But we got to draw the line. An unconstitutional bill shouldn't become law no matter what level of political gamesmanship the maker wants to use.
Tell us a little bit about how you feel to hear that much of this law being passed was about continuing the imprisonment of Black and brown people here in the city of Philadelphia.
I mean, I was totally appalled because, again, the Black and brown people, they are our people, you know, they are us. And when you go to these prisons and you see that the majority are young men, starting from ages to 18 up to, 40, and they are in there, just their lives being ruined and rotting away. That's how I look at it. It's just, I'm very disturbed. And I feel like that we have to do something. We cannot allow this to continue because it is to me, it's a plan of destruction of our community. And I feel like, if we don't do something now, we're not going to have any voice when it comes to the future.
Yeah, what you'll hear in response from legislators is the fact that we're doing so many things that reduce prison population. It was almost like this guy said, well, we want to do something to make sure we increase it too.
And that's sometimes, and I'm a preacher, so sometimes when I'm preaching, I'll say, you got to stop for a minute and let that settle a little bit in the spirit. That there are clearly politicians in the Harrisburg who want to find ways to increase the number of Black and brown people from the city of Philadelphia going to prison.
Absolutely.
They're open, they're honest, they're plotting of how to do that, and this particular law is one of those attempts. Catherine, same question I'm asking you. How does that strike you? Urban League is dealing with all kinds of people from all different backgrounds. Tell us how you feel about just hearing that he is regularly dealing with people who simply want to find ways to incarcerate Black and brown people.
Well, nothing surprises me about this country. If you know your history, you would know that this is the American way, and that we as Black people in this country, we've always had to fight for our freedom. Clearly, we've always had to fight for our right to vote. If you see where our ancestors came from, the Civil Rights, the Voting Act was passed in 1964, and here we are in 2024. So no one's going to give you your freedom. Freedom is not free. To be Black in this country is, as James Baldwin said, is to be in a state of anger each and every day, literally fighting for your fighting for your right just to be recognized as a human and not disrespected on a day-to-day basis, not disenfranchised, rendered invisible, silenced at every turn of the corner, whether it's education, it's housing, clearly criminal justice. I mean, nothing surprises me. But the most important thing is that we keep people informed on what's happening to them. We see the intentional underfunding of education. Our schools aren't even taught civics. Most people in Philadelphia don't even recognize that Act 40 exists. We're having this conversation, but most people don't even know that their right to vote has literally been taken away from them to elect a district attorney, a prosecutor. So the work, and not to mention, 98% of Philadelphia legislators voted against this. This bill was passed by legislators outside of Philadelphia County. If that's not telling, I don't know what is.
But I would say, look, it's sort of like we elected Barack Obama, which was great progress. We got a lot of things done, and then we got Donald Trump. This is no different. Part of this is a reaction to the fact that we have passed a significant amount of bills that have resulted in a massive reduction in the state prison population. For the first time, it's trending down in a long time. We have begun to put more money in education, and we've now had 2 successive governors that are trying to do that. And so those things are creating progress, which are reducing prison population, and there is a backlash to that. Every time we make progress, there's a backlash. This is part of the backlash. But what I don't want people to do is get so discouraged to say there's never any progress, because we are making progress, and that's particularly why this is happening, is because we're making progress. And let's make it clear: Donald Trump is a reaction to Barack Obama. There were people who said, "Oh my God, there's a black person, the president. Let's go find the craziest person we can find that wants to turn the time backwards to result Donald Trump." These kinds of bills are a reaction to the fact that we have been successful in getting things done, and it means we have to fight harder. Look, my childhood story is this: we were fighting against charter change when I was a kid, and the late great Milton Street was standing there on a bullhorn, yelling about it. My dad was driving a green truck. I was about 4 or 5 years old in the back, and they were throwing rocks at us, literally rocks at us, because they wanted Frank Griswold to be run for a 3rd term as mayor. And I said, "Uncle Milt, they're throwing rocks at us. They're throwing rocks at us." And he said, "Son, duck and throw them back." So, look, that's what we got to do. We got to duck and throw and keep on fighting.
Yeah, we're going to come back to some of the things we need to do.
Absolutely.
But let's tell the story a little deeper. There is, I think the number was about 12,000 less prisoners in the state system now than it was in 2012. About 6,000 less Philadelphians. The average cost to imprison someone in the system was $55,000 a year. And so if you take a particular county, I'll give you an example, one of his prisons, which actually houses those prisoners that are sick and disabled and ambulatory. And the cost for each one of them is $100,000.
Yep.
100,000, 1,400 prisoners at that jail, at that prison in Somerset, near his area in Johnstown. So that's $140 million for those 1,400 prisoners in that one prison that goes to that town to employ 700 people in that prison, and thousands more who have businesses that live off that one prison.
And let's make a direct tie-in. So let's say someone has legitimately committed a crime, a serious crime, and deserves to go to jail. Under the current district attorney, person may get 15 to 20 years for that. In their previous district attorneys who might have given that person 70 or 100 years or life, figuring out a way to get them life. So what's the significance of that? The average person getting prosecuted is, say, 25 years old, 27 years old. So a 15-year sentence means you come home when you're 40, so you can still have a life. If you get prosecuted and you never become geriatric, you never have to go to one of those facilities in prison, the fact that we have so many geriatric inmates is a direct result of mass over prosecution. Those people didn't get prosecuted when they were old and committed crimes. They have been in jail for 30, 40, 50, 60.
Yes.
We had one inmate in prison for over 70 years. The reality is, all of the data suggests that if after a person has been in jail for over 25 years, over 50 years old, they are almost zero probability of committing a crime again. So now we're just paying. That's no longer corrective. Yeah. That is just punitive, and in more it's just a way to drive money someplace else. We have a bill. I have a bill, and it's sponsored, that would create prison parole eligibility for geriatric inmates. Why are we not passing a bill to say that people who are geriatric can't be released?
Because that Johnstown guy would lose $140 million.
Exactly. Right. But the people of we could take that $140 million and spend it on something productive to benefit the citizens, and maybe reduce some people's taxes.
He doesn't want under his watch to say that they closed that prison down and he didn't do everything possible to keep that prison open. He would lose his job if he allowed $140 million to leave that area. So he wants every geriatric person that's in prison to stay there as long as they can to get that money for his citizens. So now let's tie this back to the DA. DA has
and by the way, if a person's on the street, 27 years old, 25 years old, committing crime, and they get sentenced to jail for 15 years, the community is just as safe as if they get sentenced for 50 years. But 15 years when they come home later, they're not the same person. And in the immediate, they're going either way. So you do not need over prosecution to have public safety.
That's right. And
which the people of Philadelphia know.
They don't understand.
Which is why we voted for the district attorney the way we did.
But to directly put it to what the district attorney is doing, he has a section where he has attorneys that are working with individuals who deserve compassionate release. And he works with those attorneys who are petitioning for compassionate release, allowing people to come home for maybe the last year of their life to spend time with their families. And he has done that now for 40 cases.
Wow.
Now that prison
that's $4 million.
That is $4 million less to that prison, because that's the main one that does ambulatory hospitals.
But I'll go a step further. By undermining the the relationship between the people and the district attorney, you make us less safe. And I'll give you a very specific example. In the largest mass shooting of police officers to ever happen in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which happened in my district, right near 15th and Erie. We were there that night. And I remember when that guy said he was going to come out, and he said, I will only surrender myself if to Larry Krasner. And how many police officers more would have been shot that day had District Attorney Krasner not been there? And fortunately, none of them died, right? But we had 5 shot. No one died because District Attorney Krasner was able to intervene. There was a level of public trust that existed between that community. Now, that person clearly went to jail, but there was a level of public trust that he understood he was going to still be treated fairly. That saved lives. That reduced the instance of public safety. And there you had the district attorney, police commissioner, and police department working well together to de-escalate a situation. But that kind of public trust, where literally police officers were being shot and this district attorney was able to intervene, I don't think we've ever had another district attorney that would have been able to intervene. And would that guy have been released if he knew a special prosecutor could have stepped in and took the case away?
And then, to another point, this DA has started an integrity unit.
Yes.
And, that unit has never been in the DA's office before, where, he is working on cases of those who were wrongfully committed, who have been in prison for the majority of their life. Some came in as children, under 19 years old, and now they are going through the program where they have gone back and they're using DNA
DNA
evidence, And he has been working on many cases where we are hearing more about people released that have been wrongfully convicted and who have spent over 20 to 30 to 40 years in prison. And that's another reason that I feel that he is being targeted, because, this has never been done before.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen.
Wow, I'm just listening to all that I'm hearing tonight. Listen, Larry Krasner came in as one of the most progressive district attorney in the nation, right? That is a problem for people who still look at us as a commodity, okay? We are no different than wheat, no different than corn. As you stated the numbers, in Johnstown, what is that, Cambria County?
Yes.
Somerset area.
Somerset, but that region of the state.
Okay, so we are looked upon as an economic engine. That's what's happening, That's essentially what's happening. So the people voted for Larry Krasner twice. Guess what? The next district attorney is going to need to be just as progressive. So there has to be a way to stop the people of Philadelphia. Act 40.
Yes, yeah, and it's important to note for the Conviction Integrity Unit that there have been 40 exonerations, actually 41, 40 people exonerated. One person got wrongfully convicted twice. 39 of the 40 were black men.
Yes.
And so $55,000 a year, that's another $2 million that have been taken out of that system. And right now, this DA's office has 10% of all the exonerations in the country.
But
Yes.
another fact, while that's happening, because people talk, well, what about public safety? This district attorney's also had an 85% conviction rate in homicides. 85% conviction rate in homicides is extremely high. And so people say, well, why, what's going on around public safety? It's not that, well, when you're not trying to over-prosecute every case, you can put the appropriate resources in the seriously prosecuting the serious cases that need to be prosecuted. And I think he's doing that, and he's doing it in an appropriate way. The other thing is, you can get people to testify, you can get people to cooperate when there's a level of public trust. And when and in the communities where and everyone knows that prosecutions don't happen in a vacuum. Policing doesn't happen in a vacuum. There needs to be a bargain between the people who are being prosecuted, the people who are being protected, and the people and the government officials that are doing that work. The fact that the district attorney is bringing back a level of trust where people can engage in the process is so important. It's so important to public safety. In most places, they take that for granted. In suburban communities and a lot of white communities, people just take it for granted that the district attorney, they say, wears a white hat. Well, in our community, people have not felt that level of trust. And it makes it hard to prosecute crimes. But when people feel a level of trust with the district attorney, then you're going to get greater cooperation, and it's going to lead to more public safety, because the district attorney will be able to do his job. And so I think what's missing when we talk about this is the fact that the district attorney does make sure that people who were wrongfully convicted come home, gives him credibility when he's trying to put people who need to go away.
Absolutely. But he would say, and all of us are saying, this coalition has come together of groups that want to defend democracy, all saying that even if none of that was the case, the people chose him. The
Twice.
people chose him twice by wide margins, 2-1, 3-1 margins. 80% of the vote in the areas that are where the most gun violence is at, 80% of that vote went for this district attorney. So the people have made a choice. And 2 years from now, you could have another opportunity. But you don't pass a law to put an unelected official in the middle of somebody's elected term because you don't like what he's doing.
But I also think it's important, and this is speaking to folks out there who think it. I think part of what happens with us is what I call the zookeeper mentality. Let me explain that. So people who work at zoos tend to be people who like animals, right? They care for them, they like them, they want to do what's best for them, but they don't believe that those animals know what's best for themselves because they're just dumb animals. And so some of the people who would advance this and say, well, you know what, Philadelphia needs something different. Sure, folks, so that they didn't understand look what's happening to them. Don't understand the dynamics of our community. Our community made a rational choice because we have better information about what's best for us, just like other people have better information about what's best for them. And so I explain it, not that the people here, because this will go out to an audience that goes beyond people who live in the city, to understand that building trust and hiring a district attorney to build trust is important if we're going to achieve public safety. So if you live in the suburbs and you're looking for safety, if you want to have that safety in the city, you have to allow people that live here to make decisions that will build that trust between law enforcement and community to do it. This bill at its worst is a bill that seeks to maliciously strip away the rights of people to vote and make choices. At its best, if you give the maker the best intentions, which I don't necessarily, but if you give the best, you're saying you're trying to substitute your judgment for that of the people of Philadelphia because you think we don't know what we're doing. And that is a zookeeper mentality. And I would suggest we are rational, smart people that know what we're doing, and you should let us make our choices because that will result in better safety for everyone that walks around these streets.
So that is really the essence of democracy.
Absolutely.
The idea that the people know best and can make the best judgments for their own needs and for their own concerns. We believe that democracy is the best way of doing that. We don't believe a king should do that. We don't believe an emperor should do that. We don't believe they know better. We believe the people know, and the people of Philadelphia should know what's best, not somebody in Johnstown dictating to them. Let's talk a little bit broader about this attack on democracy across the country that's happening, because it's not just here in Philadelphia. And I'm going to turn to...
Well, and I just want to say again, piggybacking on what we were just talking about, when you ask people to go out and vote, to make a decision, to make a choice, their choice should be what their choice is. It should be adhered to. It should stay the same and not just be changed because someone of another caliber or higher caliber or another position decides that decision that we made as a democracy, as a person, is wrong. So, I think we really have to stick to that. We have to really stand our ground when it comes to our vote. We have to stand our ground when we make a choice, and we cannot allow them to take us backwards.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit more about these national attacks on democracy that's happening across the country. It's not, like I said, not just happening here. Yeah, it's happening.
Texas, we see it happening in Texas, where prosecutors have been removed from office, and in one instance, the prosecutor resigned because he knew that he was going to be removed. We see that Governor Abbott in the great state of Texas, he has a legislature that is very similar to that in Florida with Ron DeSantis. It's a rubber stamp. Goes to the governor's office, it gets stamped, and that's it.
Yeah, there was there was a move in a number of places. I believe in, if I'm not mistaken, in Mississippi, they created a zone where folks in a black town didn't have the ability to make prosecutorial decisions about who, and it was only in that zone where there was where those rights were stripped. So it is happening around the country. It is an attempt to not have us have control over things. But it's happening because across the country, there is a move coming from a lot of sectors to say, you know what, the age of mass incarceration needs to end. And it's a part of the larger MAGA backlash against the fact that we're making progress. So, I think we got to keep on rumbling.
But it's not just about mass incarceration. Isn't it more just as much about the fact in 15, 20 years, it's going to be a majority nation of people of color.
Well, I think that's what the whole Governor Abbott Wall thing is about. He wants to stop immigration in part because, as you know, and the former president Trump says things that other people think and don't want to say. Look, he said the problem is why are we letting in so many black, brown, black, Asian, and Latino folks? He says, why we let people from good countries, and he called people from people of color shithole countries. That's what he said. I apologize, everybody don't like strong language, but that's what the man said.
Yes.
That's what he thinks of us. And that's what he thinks of people from Asia, people who are diverse cultures and all, because the country is moving towards being a much more diverse place. And so stopping millions of people from entering who don't look the way he wants them to look. Remember, before 1971, there were blacks and Latinos in the census were all lumped in together. And so if you look back from that perspective, that group that would have been colored people is moving towards a majority. And now we're broken into different groups and that represent the different cultural diversity we have. But still, the country's being different, and that's whole "Make America Great Again."
Yes.
The language "make" is to change or alter. Great it means to make it to something that the person who's speaking would prefer. Make America. America is the direct object in the sentence, the thing to be changed. And then again means to return to a point in time in the past. Now, if you're black, at what point in the past do you want to go back to? But I'd say if you're a woman, at what point in the past would you want to go back to? If you're a religious minority, Jewish, Muslim, whatever, what point in time would you want to go back to? A member of the LGBT community, where in the past would you want to go back to? So for most of us, saying again, which is a return to the past, isn't good. But certainly we know for black folks, there's no point in the past that we want to go back to. We want to move forward.
So the MAGA movement, which we're now talking about, the more broader movement that is anti-democratic, is really anti-democratic for black people and brown people, not anti-democratic for themselves, because they want democracy for themselves. They just want to have the power.
Not to be able to vote.
They don't want black people to have the power to vote, because to them we're not authentic Americans. Is not this just really the same stream of white supremacy and white nationalism that has existed throughout this whole history of this country, whether it's slavery, whether it's Ku Klux Klan, whether it's the John Birch Society, whether it's the moral majority or the Tea Party? Isn't this just the same stream that has been here that may be getting even more vociferous than in the past, may even be more aggressive than in the past? But isn't it the same kind of thinking that's been here?
It absolutely is. And, you know, MAGA, they use that is just a terminology for them to be able to say what they really feel. They have the power to now come out and call us what they really feel we are. And they have no, regrets. They want us to go backwards. They are making every effort to go backwards, to strip us of everything that we have accomplished. And, we can't let that happen. I mean, it is very important that we see it. But the truth is coming out. A lot of people that we thought were with us and that really, and I'll say care about us, but that isn't even the word to use. They're showing their true colors. That if they had the opportunity to send us, as Senator Street said, backwards, that's exactly what they would do. So we have to continue to vote and move forward. We have to continue the steps that we have taken to get to the positions that we are in today and not allow this to, take us backwards.
Look, maybe I'm optimistic just because where your starting point. So my starting point in life was as a kid where they were throwing rocks at us to keep us down. And so the fact that there are so many who are not joining in, is encouraging to me. I never was of the illusion that racism, bigotry, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, homophobia, xenophobia, anti-immigrant sentiment, that didn't exist. But I'm encouraged that, in fact, Trump lost. In fact, the MAGA movement is failing. And it's not, we should understand that a wounded tiger is still a tiger, and the last person eaten by a wounded tiger still got eaten. So we need to understand.
Wait a minute, man.
I like that.
Are these streetisms?
Yeah, I mean, I give my dad and my uncle do a lot of that. But look, they say, look, my uncle used to say, especially my Uncle Milt was always had things. He said, you know what they call the last, you know what their last, he used to say, Sharif, you know what the last person who got eaten by a tiger was? He said, what's that? Uncle Milt, eaten. So just because the tiger's wounded, as long as he's alive, take it seriously. This is a wounded tiger.
Before we go back to MAGA, so we need a book of streetisms.
Yes.
Definitely need a book.
Yeah.
Get it
Right,
together.
but
Tell the former mayor to get that
Until
book
we got to
together.
pull it together between my uncle and my father. They had a lot of them.
Yes.
But look, I mean, this tiger is wounded. Now, it's still going to eat us one more time, so we need to be careful. But if we're resilient, understand we're winning. Now, look, the tiger is wounded. We've been hunted by tigers for a long time, since we got to America. This ain't nothing new for us. But the opportunity to strike a fatal blow to this movement is important, and we got to come out, and they're counting on our apathy.
Yes.
So we got to be engaged.
Exactly. Particularly to this special prosecutor law, they passed this thing in the dead of night and expect us not to respond to it. But it is a part of this greater Republican MAGA movement that wants to strip away voting rights from black and brown people. We got to stand up and do something about it. Melissa, tell us a little bit more about what the Urban League nationally is talking about in terms of democracy and its importance.
Well, we have an initiative that we're moving forward with. It's called the 3 Ds: defend democracy, demand DEI, and defeat poverty. And as we all know, we live in a city that's known as the largest, most poverty-stricken city in the nation. How do we defeat poverty? Well, we educate our people, right? We attract more companies and corporations to our city. We prepare a very skilled workforce so that our people can fill jobs, not service jobs that pay $12 to $15 an hour, but we're talking about livable wages that allow people to sustain financially and create generational wealth. But you can't create generational wealth if you lack education, financial intelligence. Our people have been intentionally underfunded in I mean, look at what just happened with the repeal of, I'm thinking about colleges and institutions having affirmative action. If that's not an example of opportunities for education, upward mobility being stripped away, then I don't know what it is. And you made a good point about what's happening across the nation. If you set fires in every corner, it's hard to put out the fires. The entire forest will burn, whether it's attack on housing, education, our healthcare, criminal justice, our right to vote. Fires are constantly intentionally being set, and it's very difficult for us to respond if we're not adequately prepared or if we don't know what's happening to us.
Absolutely. So the Urban League sees this as this national movement happening.
Absolutely.
And is trying to react to this national Republican MAGA movement that wants to deny black and brown voters the right to vote, undermining in many, many different ways. And so we're a part of what's happening here in Pennsylvania is a part of what the Republican MAGAs are doing across the nation. And we have to respond here. But we have to respond here knowing that we're standing together with the entire black and brown community across this nation, and also people of goodwill who believe in a multi-racial, multi-ethnic nation that has made America stronger. That we're not trying to go back to make America great again. No, the greatness of America is in the future when we become this greater multicultural, multi-ethnic, multiracial nation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Dr. King called the writings of the founders a promissory note. And the reason he said a promissory note, because when you get a promissory note, it's not cash that you have right now, but it's a promise to pay in the future. And I believe, as Dr. King believed, that what they were doing was setting out a set of principles that would yield benefits years to come. They wrote the words, all men, and we now read all people are created equal. But they weren't. We didn't live out that at that time. But it was a challenge to us to get there. And so many of the values that were written in that document clearly weren't the reality of the day. I mean, shoot, poor white folk didn't even have the right to vote if you weren't a landowner. But the reality is that we have been moving through the history of this country towards actually living out the words on the paper. And I think we can't lose sight of that, because that's part of what the greatness of America is, the ideal that we strive towards, not the reality that we live with. And so the idea of the country is one that we must continue to pursue. Pursuing that means we have to become more inclusive. Well, our strength right now, as the world's economy becomes more globalized, is the fact that we have people from every walk of life.
That's right.
Our strength, the diversity, equity, and inclusion allows us to market to people in Africa and in Asia and in Europe too, and in South America, because we have people from all those cultures here. And so our diversity is a strength. It is an added value. When I was representing corporate clients, we'd explain to them that your diversity makes you stronger,
Yes, it
makes you
does.
more competitive, and in the global market, that's even more true. And so I just think we have to look at it. It both makes economic sense, cultural sense, and of course, as talking to a preacher, it makes moral sense.
Yeah, absolutely moral sense. It is the right thing to do for our nation. You're right. Actually, we are moving forward. But like it's the proverbial 2 steps forward, 1 step back,
Yeah.
2 steps forward, 1 step back. Look at Act 40 as one of those 1 step backs. Tell us a little bit more about how the NAACP is responding, not just here, but across the nation to this MAGA movement.
So again, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, we are looking at everything that is happening throughout the different states. The fact that, when you talk about our rights to vote, when you talk about our rights as women to make choices, economically, our rights. The NAACP is one of the oldest civil rights organizations around. We were founded in 1909. So again, we're not going backwards, we're going forward. We are stepping up to the plate. We are making sure that, advocacy is a strong part of everything that we put out. We are making sure that voting rights are being recognized and that people understand what their rights are. So all these things are important, and all these things are what the NAACP stands for, and we just want to make sure that the community is joining in that effort as well.
Yeah.
And I just want to add to the things that the National Urban League and our local affiliate here, our Philadelphia branch, is doing. So we have a very, very rigorous and a high-functioning reentry program. Housing, we are responsible for about 20% of new homeowners here in the city. We have a very vibrant program, workforce development. We just started another cohort. We bring about 20 to 25 young people in. We talk to them about who they are, where they're going. We bring employers in. They have mock interviews, resume seminars. We take them out to the community. We expose them to, workspaces and environments that typically they don't get access to. And as an advocate for the Urban League, I am in spaces all the time, whether it's on Capitol Hill, whether it's at the Capitol, advocating with our legislators around the issues that matter most and that move our communities forward. Because a lot of times people are at work. They don't have time to go and see their legislators and talk to them about how their communities are being impacted by laws. So that's why you have advocates to go and do the talking for you. So I'm very honored to serve with the Urban League, and we're doing some really, really great work. In fact, we're about to kick off a campaign between now and July, where we're going into the community, ensuring that people are not only registered to vote, but they're informed and they're empowered to take back their vote as we go into the general election. And we know this one is going to be one of the most important elections. If we thought 2020 was a doozy, well, we're walking right into a fire right now.
Absolutely.
So we're all involved, engaged in a lot of different works. Again, I'm a part of the 57 Block Coalition that believes that community investment is the best public safety policy. And I know people are having hard to believe this, but the work of advocacy has gotten more gun violence prevention dollars in this city over the last 2 years than in the entire history of the city. And most of that came through the work at the state level that Senator Street was involved with. Literally $50 million in 2022, and now another $20 million recently. So we are on the downward. We are now at the pre-pandemic level in terms of violence. That means what it was before the pandemic is now the level now of gun violence in the city of Philadelphia. And it's the advocacy of folk like right around this room, this table, the studio, that has made the difference in those resources and has brought violence that much down. Now, you may not know that because you may see every day on the news. It seems like another shooting and another shooting and another shooting. But advocacy works. It works, and it saves lives. And so we want to lift that up as a part of this discussion of the special prosecutor law, because this part of that 57 block coalition I just mentioned comes out of the DA's office, because this DA said, I see the need for real work with gun violence prevention organizations to make a difference in the community and bring down gun violence. I don't want to just prosecute cases. I want to prevent the case in the first place. And so that work is going down, and literally the DA has given over $3 million back to the community that came through the community came to the DA's office through forfeiture laws, where money was a part of the illegal gain. Instead of taking that money and putting it in his budget, he said, I'm gonna send that back to the community. And he sent it back in gun violence prevention organizations across the city that never got resources before, that are now getting $10,000, $15,000 to help support the work that they're doing in the community. So all of this comes from this progressive vision of what a DA is, that is now under attack by Republican MAGAs that want to go back to the mass incarceration levels of before, and don't want to see these kind of prevention ideas coming out of a district attorney's office, which is completely different and new and unique and has not happened before. So we're standing together. Now, I'm going to give you your last word. We only got a couple minutes left. Catherine, if you give us give 30 seconds of a last word here about the Act 40 and voting.
Well, for the Act 40 and voting, let's just say that's not something that we want to support. Get out here, make your voices heard, make sure that you vote, but when it comes to this, reach out to your legislators and let them know that this is not something, again, that you are going to go for. You made your choice, you made your voice heard, and we want to make sure that that stays the way it's supposed to be. When you take the time to go out and vote, your vote should count. Everyone's vote should count.
Mm-hmm. Melissa.
I would say to the people, mobilize. Come together in your community, talk to your legislators so that your legislators inform you on what's going on. Choose an advocate. Maybe it's someone that's retired that has the time, but have advocates in your community who can go to the Capitol, who can go to City Hall, who can go to Capitol Hill and get information and bring it back to the community. Because if you don't know, you don't want to be left in the dark. So we're here to inform and empower, and Act 40 is not something that is for the people. The preamble says we the people, and this is not representative of the people.
Thank you, Melissa Robbins, for all of what you've been doing. Thank you, Catherine Hicks, for your leadership. And Senator, if you take 30 seconds to share.
The program's almost over. We've heard a lot. People, you got to get out and vote. Ben Franklin said, I think, what will it be, a republic? Or will we have a democracy? He said, it's a democracy if we are able to keep it. We keep it by getting engaged and involved in the process. File a brief, vote, 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 get engaged. That's how we win.
So the Coalition to Defend Democracy has come forward. These organizations are part of that coalition. About 20 different organizations across the city of Philadelphia have come together to stand up against this special prosecutor law and the Republican MAGA movement to defend democracy in this city. Please let your governor please let your Attorney General know to not enforce this special prosecutor law, and let's move as quickly as we can to repeal it and find it unconstitutional, because it cannot and should not overrule the will of the citizens of Philadelphia, overrule the will of black and brown voters in this city. I thank you for the opportunity of letting us come into your house again to share Just Nation with you, and we'll be back again next month to share another episode. Take care, everybody, and bye-bye.
All right.